Hello and welcome to The Good, the Bad and the Worst, a podcast where we discuss movie trilogies and try to decide which one is a medium rare steak and which one is a protein block made from cockroaches. I'm your host and I know that babies taste best, and joining me as always are...
I'm Grana, and our entire life is punishment.
And I'm Luke 15, and I'm still good meat. I'm perfectly good meat. Tastes fine.
Don't smell at all.
We're talking about a trilogy. I use that term loosely. It's by Bong Joon-Ho. Now we've unofficially titled it the Class Warfare Trilogy. So that comprises Snowpiercer, Parasite, and Mickey17, I think. Let's just address this. This really should at least be a quadrilogy and include Okja. Or honestly, kind of just be an octology and have all of Bong Joon-Ho's films, because they're kind of all about class warfare. But Luke, tell me why you were the one who was sort of made this claim more. How did you justify
Me?
Yeah.
Well, this is what happened. Mickey17 was coming out. I really wanted to watch it. And I loved Parasite. And you know what? After watching a few of his films, I realized, class warfare is a big theme. It was kind of a guess that Mickey17 was going to be about class warfare. Obviously, there's the trailers that were out at the time, and you could kind of guess a bit of it. I mean, we'll get into how it actually plays out in Mickey17 and stuff like that. But I definitely you can definitely see, at least in parts of each movie, similarities and similar commentaries and stuff like that. So
I mean, look, I think you're kind of right. Like, Bong Joon-Ho really has a style, right? Like, I feel like you could pick his movies out of a criminal lineup. You'd be able to say, "Yep, that's him. That's him. That's him." Yeah, I think you're justified in that. Luke, is it a trilogy?
Because Grana, you came out this and said you didn't want to do Okja, despite my protests that we should. Why is that?
I think it fits the theme the least. It's also my least favorite of his movies, but I actually want to watch it again now because, man, I love Bong Joon-Ho. Like, this man, this man can direct a fun movie.
I've never seen Okja, so I should check it out.
Yeah.
It was fun prepping for this. I rewatched all of his movies, so I'm 100% a hitter of the bong, so to speak.
Conan, take a hit of the bong and tell us then. Does this make sense as a trilogy? Someone who studied all of his works, is there a thematic string between these?
Like, not really. Like, as in there is, but you can draw it between almost any of them.
Yeah, like, the man hates capitalism. What can you say?
That's right. All of his movies are about sort of wealth and class issues, and the sort of a treatise on capitalism and how it sort of destroys the system. But like, you can connect a lot of them. I honestly think this would be better served by either not even not having Parasite, but like having Okja in there as his third English speaking movie would sort of make a lot of sense in my mind. But then if you're gonna do Parasite and focus on class, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense to have his first movie, Barking Dog Never Bite, because that's kind of like a very small, basically black comedy about just like sort of poor people struggling to not be poor anymore. Like, he does have to. There are other movies that don't fit. Like Memories of Murder doesn't really fit into that, but that's his best movie. So look, this kind of functions, but I am a little bit like, it really should either be more or less. But I'm always happy to talk about Bong Joon-Ho, so that's fine. I'll let you have it this time. So Grant, you said that you're a big Bong Joon-Ho fan. Had you seen most of his movies? What was your experience?
I mean, I have seen everything since Snowpiercer. Admittedly, I haven't. I really want to watch his other movies. I just haven't. There's not a good way to watch them, really. Is what I've found. Maybe they're available streaming now.
Physical media.
Physical media, which I own zero of and have zero ways to play. But other than that, it's a great idea.
Jeez. Luke, what about you? What was your exposure to him?
So honestly, I feel like the first movie I ever saw of his was Snowpiercer. Shortly after it had come out. No idea who the director was. I didn't hire it because of who the director was. I just was like, oh, Chris Evans, Captain America. I'll watch this movie. And then years later, there was the whole buzz around Parasite. and had to check that out just based off that buzz. And that's when I felt like I really heard his name for the first time, like myself.
Yeah.
And yeah, I haven't gone down the rabbit hole of going back to his older movies yet, but I was definitely excited for Mickey 17 just based off Parasite and Robert Pattinson. So I was like, yeah, I'm on board for this.
Yeah. Yeah. Snowpiercer was definitely like his first main introduction for people because it was his first English language. Rewatching it, I'm like, ballsy choice for Chris Evans. Like in the middle of the Captain America run, like after the Avengers, he's like, I'm going to go and make this sort of not art house, but like this sci-fi movie by
Yeah,
a
eating babies and,
yeah,
you know,
yeah, like about some pretty, I don't know, some could say controversial topics, and it's got some
Yeah.
pretty full-on content.
And
So I don't know,
he's not like a real good guy in it either, right? Like he's not Captain America in that movie.
no, absolutely, yeah, very much not. So like it's a cool choice, and I really respect him for doing that. And it's a shame he didn't follow through with that after all his MCU run, but whatever. And then yeah, Parasite is the other one that really literally made Bong Joon-Ho a household name. Like, you know,
Best
he was
Picture
already
nominee, like
that's right,
Best
like
Picture winner. Yeah,
very historical, like huge win, kind of
yeah,
overturned the narrative of what the Oscars did and what the Academy was. And you know, like cinephiles everywhere already knew who he was. He was a known quantity in a lot of those circles, and like he already had a big Korean presence.
mm,
But then yeah, Parasite comes along, sort of everybody saw that movie, and everyone was like, "Have you heard about this Korean film that we should see?"
mm,
And yeah, it's interesting then seeing what he follows up with, but we will discuss that when we get to Mickey 17.
yes.
All right, let's do some stats.
Stats.
Snowpiercer, 2013 release. Budget of 40 million, made 86.8 million. It's a Metacritic of 84. It's nearly a high distinction in uni terms. Parasite, 2019, budget of $11.4 million, made $258 million. Metacritic of 97.
Wow.
And then Mickey 17, 2025, budget of 118 million. So far, it has made $90.5 million.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Keep going, Mickey.
In about 2 weeks, it's going to PVOD.
Digital.
So maybe it'll make it up there. I don't know. It's not looking good, unfortunately. Metacritic of 72 for Mickey 17. Yeah, those budgets are interesting. Like Parasite is obviously small, and you don't need much for it. And then just those earnings, like 258 million, pretty astounding.
Yeah.
Pretty standing for a Korean movie, like in Korean. It's not like, yeah, amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, entirely subtitled. There's never anything like it's very, very Korean thematic focus. Like, you know, there's a lot of like it's works sort of it's got universal themes, but like a lot of the stuff is specific to that. So the way they treat people and react to people, and like, you know, it's kind of the quirks of all of his movies, where it's like everyone's almost feels a little bit strange, but it's like this is to Westerners, like it doesn't seem right. It's like that's not how people act, but I think it is how they act in Korea, and that's kind of that sort of adds to the charm of his movies, where it just feels like you're watching something very unique.
Yep.
All right, let's talk Snowpiercer. I'm just going to read from the synopsis that I wrote down clearly for myself. In the year 2050 something, a failed climate change experiment has killed all life except for the survivors who have boarded the Snowpiercer, which is a train that travels around the globe.
Yeah.
What a dope-ass premise, man.
I know.
Post-apocalypse, there's one train left, everyone's in there. Like, that's just...
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, watching this movie again, like, the premise is silly. Like, this movie is silly, but in, like, the best way, in my opinion. Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it, like, I had that thought. I was like, this is... Every moment of it is just kind of ridiculous. But it just works. Like, Bong Joon-Ho is a master of combining genre and, like, having serious stuff with completely wacky, absurdist stuff, like horror and comedy, thriller and quietness. Like, I don't know, he's so interesting in doing like you said, Grant, you can pick his movies because no one else can sort of do it the way he does, where it's not just like, oh, I'm making a black comedy or I'm making a satire. It's like it's kind of everything mashed into one, and they never sort of tread on their toes. They never sort of eat into each other's. They never like make the tone feel off, and this is a great example. Like, it's silly, and some of the dialogue is stilted, and some are kind of the just like the weird things people say and do, and interactions are bizarre, and the characters are so strange.
Yep.
But it all works, and then there's like incredible moments, like
Mm.
the fish, the gutting of the fish in the massacre. And
The,
it's like,
the bloodying of the knives, yeah. Yep.
yeah, and it's like, yeah, it's like nothing else.
Luke, you famously hate this movie. Tell us about it.
All right, hold up.
Oh, we lost him.
He's
He
so
hates
angry.
it. He hates it so much he broke his internet. We might take a quick break.
Sorry about those technical difficulties. We've had a moment to compose ourselves. Luke, you were about to
Yes.
talk about Snowpiercer.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to preface this, right? Now, when I went and watched Snowpiercer, I felt like I was, you know, I watched it because of Chris Evans, basically. And I was a huge fan of Winter Soldier. And I was like, cool. I loved apocalyptic stuff. I loved, all that sort of depressing movies. I was like, cool. This sounds cool. Like the premise sounded really cool to me. I felt like I went into this maybe expecting something akin to like The Road, where it's just I had no idea of like this absurdist dark comedy weirdness. So I was just expecting straight up an apocalypse movie, realistic, set in a train. And so then when it goes off the rails, I remember like sitting there being like, what the hell is going on? Like, this is so weird. I was like, people don't act like I found it like I was like, this is so weird. Like, why are people acting like this? Like, this is unbelievable, What is this doing in my believable apocalypse movie? And and that was 10 years ago. I felt like I probably didn't know cinema that really well back then, I was like all like, oh, I love Marvel, all that sort of stuff. And I feel like I've grown a lot and I've matured a lot over the years. So coming into this, I even was still a bit hesitant about watching it, but I was like, okay, maybe I was wrong. I was like, I feel like I'll probably appreciate it more now. And boy, did I. Boy, did I appreciate it. So
Like
even
your first bong hit, some people can't handle it. But...
oh man, it was a trip. Like I felt like even as the movie started, and it set the premise of like what's happened to the world, like I felt like I'd forgotten everything that had happened. And so seeing the premise laid out straight away, like 2 minutes into it, I was like, oh, this is cool. I was like, this is a really cool premise. I'm here for it. And then just I was able to enjoy the ride. Obviously there's still I don't know, the whole fish thing, and I know it seems like you guys love it with their masks and they're covering their eyes and just all like it's a weird scene, like, but hey, it is what it is. It's entertaining.
I mean, it's not a big scene, and we've all talked about it, right? Like, it's just this memorable moment, and it's memorable, and it's weird and bizarre, and it doesn't really serve any purpose. Like, I think the first time I saw it, I thought, oh, they're putting poison on the blades or something like that. But no, I don't think there's nothing to it. It's just it's a stylistic choice, I guess, if anything.
And when I talked to you going about like 2 weeks ago after we came out of Mickey17, and I was like, I don't even remember Snowpiercer that well. I was like, I remember there's one carriage that's really weak. And there's like a fight scene in it. And that was honestly my main memory from it was there's something weird. And as soon as that carriage opened up, I was like, all right, this is the scene. This is the one that I remember being like, oh, this is really weird. But yeah, I was all aboard for this movie. Like
the Snowpiercer.
Yeah, all aboard the Snowpiercer. I absolutely loved this. I'm interested in the world, like I'm interested in even I've forgotten the train creator's name. Wilford, yeah. Like his whole thing about how he knew this was happening and everything like that, and if there was conspiracy theories about that. Like I really, really enjoyed the train ride.
Yeah. The carriage with the black leather massacre is like that is the scene that kind of stands out because I think it's like when you start this movie, you're watching one film, right? Like it's a pretty almost a standard like class warfare. They're just like these are clearly the bottom of the rung. They're the scum, and they're just trying to rebel. They're trying to literally start a revolution. So like this is tried and true, and it's clever. It's cool. It's fun to watch like the dynamics and then figure out a plan. But then it's like you get to that scene and the doors open. Like it's already been a bit weird because they've broken out the master locksmith and his daughter.
Yeah,
I can't remember the character's name because I'm a not a native Korean speaker, probably a racist thing. I don't know, but we'll call him Locksmith.
The junkies.
So the junkies. And so they break him out, and you've been introduced to Kronos, which is like this weird drug. So everything's a little bit weird already, but you're like, okay, whatever. It's this is sci-fi. But that scene happens, and the door opens, and the music drops, and it's this crazy good, like, just I don't know, this heavy riff, and it's like, oh shit. And it's like they're so creepy. It's these guys who their eyes are covered. Most of them have got their mouths out, but their eyes are covered. Like they're not human.
Yeah.
And it's like the tension just builds, and they've all got knives and axes. And it's like, I'm watching people confront the devil here. And like this isn't just a grounded revolution. Like this is something deeper, something more. And then the fish comes out, and it's like, I have no fucking clue what I'm watching. But it all feels so like it's also obviously chosen and carefully done. And it's like there's a reason. And the guy, like you say, it's like you wonder, are they poisoning the blades? And you're like, oh mate, that doesn't make a lot of sense because they're trying to eliminate it now. And it's like, but then you look into but then you look into the history of like blooding blades before war. It's like maybe this is an ancient battle ritual, maybe it's intimidation. And then I was on the Reddit boards, and someone was like, the reason why they're all covering their faces is because these are probably people from that carriage that have been slowly taken to join the forces, and they don't want people to see them. Like that creates that anonymity to allow this horrible massacre. I'm like, that's what you want in storytelling. They've thought it out. It doesn't spell it out though, and so you watch that scene, you're just like, tell me what's happening then. Yeah.
And I love how he does that with so many things. Like there's this vocabulary on the train. Like I love how they talk about bullets being extinct. Like and like this is the last cigarette that exists. Like there's just all these little touches that just build this really, really fun world to explore for this hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is.
Absolutely.
And like it doesn't all have to make sense. Like it's just fun to get a glimpse into this world, and it makes you want to pay attention and see what weird shit you're gonna see next. I also love that he's okay with things just being cool. Like you've got this freaking ninja who's just wearing a trench coat with his abs out, and he could just kill everyone in one hit. Like he's sick as, he has no backstory. He exists for 3 carriages. We love him. We love him.
Yeah, they're like this guy is bigger than the other enemies we've versed. Let's get the ninja guy out.
Yeah.
To verse the boss, basically.
Yes.
It's such a video game mechanic. It's great.
And even in that scene, when you first see that big guy who's like swinging them, and he's like roaring like I don't know, like a golem or something, and he's like clearly twice their size. It reminded me of 300, where there's like these mutant monsters, and it's like, and so then you're like, what is this? Are there like inbred monsters? Are there nuclear radiation experiments? And it's like, you're right. He never explains it. He's never like, our genetic code has diminished us, but like. It works just as really stylistically cool, but it also works as a great way to visualize like how weak the tail people are. Because like obviously Chris Evans is a absolute specimen of human masculinity, but I guess we're supposed to imagine or supposed to understand that they are weaker. They're living off this protein block. They are living in squalid, awful conditions. And so you have everyone who appears, like the father and the son, the lady in yellow. They're all kind of like, they're just large. They're just really big. It's like, the normal people are actually just physically larger. And so rather than trying to like dwarf eyes or like make everyone look, decrease their size by 50% so they all look really small. And it's like, no, we just have all the other people look big. It's like, that's clever. That's a really clever way to tell this. It's like, you don't have to worry about trying to convince us that Chris Evans isn't so strapping and handsome. Yeah. Just fill the train up with like extra human strong people because they're getting like steaks and eggs for dinner.
I love the classroom with all the brainwashing and propaganda for the kids, like chanting along to songs and stuff like that.
And the teacher just getting out of Alison Piller's great, just getting out of Uzi and mowing them down.
He's wild in that scene, yeah. And then like this movie pulls no punches. Like I forgot watching that Edgar dies in that massacre.
And Chris Evans lets him die. Like he makes a choice. He's like, you know what? Which in every other movie you're expecting him to go back and save his friend and not get. And he's like, no, I'm gonna catch her. Like, fine.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. There's never like this movie sort of pulls no punches in that extent. I also forgot how violent it was. Like the deaths are brutal.
Even the scene like near the start where they stick his arm out the door and freeze it and then smash it in front of you, and it's just like, oh wow, this is brutal. And it's a great setup for like, all these people are missing limbs. Oh, that's why. Okay, that's their form of punishment.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe not. You know, we get this not nice twist, but we get a twist at the end. Can we talk about Tilda Swinton? I love how, I don't know. I'm just going to smoke the bong here, but Bong Joon-Ho likes giving actors just go ham with this role.
Fun.
Like, just have some fun with it. Give me a weird character. Let's go. And Tilda Swinton just knocks it out of the park. Like, she is so great in the scene she's in. She's just this uptight, stuck-up thing that's obsessed with Wilfred. Like, it's so good.
But like all those little features, like she's got the missing teeth for some reason. That's like, why? What has happened there? You don't get told. Her monologue about the shoe on the head is just like,
That's great. Memorable. It's memorable.
And then we get the hand motion, the reach in and pull out, and it's like, what is she doing there? Like, just this little seed that's planted for later on.
Yeah.
The protein bars made of cockroaches. It's like, pretty gross.
That's the future though. Like crickets and cockroaches, very high in protein.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with that one, I think.
Yeah.
I think it actually might be our future, to be honest.
No, like legit, crickets are legitimately like people looking at it as like, that is how like you'll get your bulk of your protein one day when farming kind of falls apart.
Yeah.
Cockroaches are a bit gross, but it was funny. Like in 2013, I think it was a little bit more unimaginable, whereas now I think we're all a bit like, oh yeah, that's okay. That's
in this economy, it's like, hey, it's free food.
I'm not going to turn down protein block.
Some good protein there. I know.
Yeah. A lot of great visual storytelling as well. Like sort of mentioned, but all the people, like this use of color, like the lady who appears to take the child is just dressed in yellow, and they're all like very monochrome gray and just everything sapped from them. All their settings are, and then as they advance the train, each carriage becomes a little bit more colored until you eventually get like the classroom that is bright and vibrant. They go through the garden, then you get to like the drug tripping party carriages, and it's like just too much color, but it also gets a lot darker again. And so it's this interesting, like, I don't know, there's this interesting look of like light reflecting life and how that changes and collides and all this stuff. I know he fills all his movies with that subtext, and even like the left to right, like there's so many scenes of him. He looks to the left, and like that's back. Like when Edgar's dying, he looks back to Edgar, and then he looks right to Tilda Swinton, and he's constantly going right. He's always making this choice to go to one side of the screen.
Yeah.
So you never have to. He's never like, I'm sorry, Edgar, I have to go. Yeah. It's like we know why he's doing this because he's literally got to get to the end. Yeah. Just really simple, really effective.
Yeah. Bong Joon-Ho is secretly a huge alt-right guy too, so he just wants to plant that subtext in our brain, right?
Always go right.
Yes, he hates the poor. It's clearly like the tail should have died.
Can't stand socialism, I'm sure.
Yeah. You get the interesting appearance by his frequent collaborator, what's his name? Song Kang-ho, who plays the jailbreaker. Pardon me. Yeah, so he's in a lot of his films, and I think he's a really nice addition, kind of adding the like he doesn't want to help them, but he will for his drug, and they translate to each other and stuff.
Yeah,
he's a really good actor.
He's great.
What do you think of the ending?
Yeah, I was going to say that. Like, I think it's my least favorite part of the movie. Like, I don't know, it doesn't do a lot for me, those two, just the two of them escaping. Like, how are they going to survive? They make it seem like a hopeful ending, but it's pretty hopeless the more you think about it, right?
I had thought, watching all of his movies, like, he does this a lot. He'll end a movie where it's kind of like a positive note, and like you're meant to think it's happy. But then when it's like, no, this isn't going to go well at all. Like, it's usually side characters or the main character's done it, but they've lost like everything they wanted, and it's kind of like they just have to. It's like the enemy or the villain, quote unquote, has sort of been beaten, or at least like the protagonist or characters have overcome that, but then they're still just worse off. Because that's exactly right. It's like even if they do survive, what are they going to do? Like, are they going to repopulate the earth? Like,
I mean, I was just like, that polar bear's going to eat them. Polar bear's like, food. Yeah, finally.
And there's the hint that her father says where she's like, the plane is getting. I can see more of the plane each year, so it is warming. but it's still like, yeah, but
It's still
no,
pretty
you-
cold though.
yeah,
You could do a few more laps before you escape, right? Like,
Give 'em all that.
yeah,
wait till you can see that whole plane, and then maybe you'll be all right.
yep.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what ending I want from this, right? Like a totally cheerful, happy ending doesn't seem right either. Maybe
Could
I
you
want the
have had
snow.
it-
What's that?
You go. I was going to say, could you have had it that the Snowpiercer is spreading it still? Like it's actually,
Spreading what?
and that like the fumigation thing that made it freeze, like it's
Oh,
actually
perpetuating.
still dispersing it, and it's just going around the planet over and over again. Continue to make it cold so they can continue to control the world,
Yeah.
kind of thing.
I think, yeah, like reading this text, right? It's like you see clearly what, like Bong Joon-Ho, he's not subtle with his beliefs. Like he's very much trying, like, and in Mickey 17, I think it comes a bit more obvious even, and but like he's trying to say in this, like, I think pretty clearly, he's like, this is the class divide and like this capitalist system that we have is this perpetual machine. Like this movie, again, I'm not subtle about it. It's literally kids inside keeping the machine turning, and he's
Yes.
like, "You need to take this on the like. I'm at the very top, but it's not as good as it is." Blah blah blah. And so he's literally saying you need to break out to the side. Like it's you're only going to go up or down unless you try to break that system. And so it's like it's just interesting thing. He could try, like a different filmmaker might add that ending where it turns out Wilford was like a big psycho who made this happen because he's just like this megalomaniac. But instead, he's actually kind of like he's like most wealthy people, where they're like, I deserve my status. I'm not a bad guy, and I'm also part of like no billionaire like Musk, Bezos, all of them. They're not like we are evil monsters. They're like, oh, we're actually doing the hardest job of all. We're
Yeah.
the ones who have to keep this all together, and everyone else is like, no, you're a true monster.
Sympathy
And,
for the
that's
billionaires,
yeah, and that's Wilford in this. He's like, like straight away, he's like, you think it's all great up here? It's very loud and it's lonely, and it's like, yeah, right, okay. But then so he's presented with that choice. He's then got to actually think about it. And he's like, well, what, should I take that? Do I want that? And yeah, but you are right. Like the whole ending, it's like it has to end that way to realize Bong's vision. The whole final act of this movie is a little bit kind of sped up and a little bit weaker than the rest of it. Like the opening part is really great.
Yep.
And then because like after the school when Tilda Swinton dies and they have the fight with the father and the son, like the father, the big guy in the suit.
Yes.
It kind of like burns through the rest of the carriages because there's like 3 of them left. And it's just like they go to the front of the train and
you get some weird, like, I don't know, that scene where he's shooting that Uzi across the train. Like, it's kind of fun, but it's kind of stupid too, right? Like it's not. I don't know. It's not as fun as a lot of the other scenes in this movie. Like, it doesn't feel like it fits as well. But
yeah, it feels like it's an interest. He's just kind of like, this is interesting, right? Like we're trying to hit each other, and because they take the 2 shots and they almost hit, and they kind of stop and they realize, okay, I don't know. It's like, are they realizing this isn't going to work, or are they like, I respect you, so I'm not going to keep. It has the great machine deemed that we saw. I don't know. It's cool. Ash, is there anything else to mention before we move on? Luke?
No, I'm glad I watched this again because I definitely now have a different opinion of it than I did back then. So, people learn, grow as a person, revisit their movies. Only go back and watch Mighty Ducks. You might change your opinion. So.
The twist of replacing parts with kids is pretty good. Like, I don't think I saw that coming the first time I saw it. Like, and it's truly horrifying, but in a way that kind of makes sense, right? Like, as in his justification. As with all great villains, he has his justification for it, and I think that works really well.
And it is true. It's like the train is dying, and if it dies, everyone dies. So they do. It's like, if we want this system to perpetuate, then the machine does need to be. What is that saying? The machine of capitalism is lubricated by the blood of the workers, or something. It's like, yeah, there's truth to that, and I don't know. You got to think about what you want in that.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Parasite, 2019. Again, I'm going to read from this in this synopsis that I wrote down because I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. Greed and class discrimination threaten the newly formed symbiotic relationship between the wealthy Park family and the destitute Kim clan. Do you guys remember where you were when you saw this movie?
In my house.
Yeah, in my home, my other home, my home that I lived in before this home.
I guess,
Watch it at the cinema.
do you remember the experience of it, or are you like, oh yeah, I've seen that movie?
I do. I remember, like, I felt like this movie actually put me on a bit of like a Korean mood. Like, after this, like, I went in and looked. You'd think I should have looked up his previous works, but I must have back then just saw Snowpiercer and been like, oh, everyone gets lucky once, I guess. But like, I ended up watching a bunch of like Korean movies that I genuinely loved. Like, I was like, man, these are really good movies.
Yeah.
Shoplifters is something I'll just shout out. Like, I love that movie so much, and
Yep.
I would never have watched them had I not watched Parasite. I felt like it sort of, I don't know. My wife used to make jokes that I wouldn't watch foreign films because I was like, subtitles. No, I only watch subtitles on, English movies. I need subtitles on them, but not other ones. I want to be able to look away. But yeah, like, it made me appreciate it a lot more. And I just remember watching it, and I kind of had the same thought watching this the second time, where, because I hadn't seen it again since I first watched it, but I was watching it and I was just like, this movie's perfect. Like, I love this movie so
Yeah.
much.
Yep.
And just every beat hits so good, and everyone in this movie is so good. I was just like, this movie's perfect. Like, I love this movie so much. It's so good.
Luke, we might be the same person because I did the same thing the first time I saw it. Like, I went on a Korean kick. I'll shout out Train to Busan. Like, I love this movie, and watching it again because it was the first time I watched it again since the first time I saw it. I'm like, man, this movie is amazing.
Yep.
I just truly love this movie. I think this is my favorite Oscar winner. Chef's kiss, 10 out of 10. No notes.
There's a great, like, Bong Joon-Ho did a great speech when he won. Like, that was a momentous Oscars, one of the most momentous in recent memory. Came out of nowhere, like a really sort of small campaign, but was just garnering steam and love. And yeah, no, I wasn't betting, but I don't know if anybody saw this really coming. But he's had this great quote. He said, once you overcome the 1 inch tall barrier of subtitles, you'll be introduced to so many more amazing films. And this movie, much like everyone's first Bong here, is kind of a gateway, right? Where I think a lot of people saw this and was like,
Bong is the gateway drug to Korean movies. Like,
this joke has been made ad nauseum, and I'm going to keep doing it because it's so friggin' funny. But this movie was kind of like a gateway for a lot of people. Like, people are like, Best Picture is a Korean film. What? And they watched it and were like, enjoyed it. And then I think a lot of people were like, oh, okay, maybe we should actually give this a go, because it's not just, it's not just weird French films about sex or Russian films about being alone on a space station for 3 hours. It's like, oh, they make interesting, exciting things.
like, does Squid Game succeed as much if Parasite doesn't succeed as much, like, in Western culture?
I think you can trace that lineage, hey? Like, I think you're right.
100%. I remember when that was so successful, I was thinking that. I'm like, thank you, Parasite. It crawled so Squid Game could run.
Yeah.
I mean, even like K-pop has seen such a huge international fandom grow in the last 5 years. Like, can we blame Parasite for all of that? Probably not. But I think, Korean culture has opened up to the world in a way since this movie came out that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, this movie has really contributed to, like, the export of Korean culture, I guess. And what that looks like. Yeah. I get frustrated with so many people praising this film and loving this film, because I'm always like, I don't like it when other people love what I love.
You contrarian, you hipster.
And look,
it's too popular. I must hate it.
A little bit. Like, look, to give him some context, when I saw this at the film festival back in 2019, and by then, like, when it was showing, it was not a big thing. It was like a tiny little blip on the program, but I knew Bong Joon-Ho, and I was like, I'll check it out. So I went with a friend, not expecting that much, just expecting a decent movie. Yeah. And everyone was just kind of blown away, and then Bong Joon-Ho came out in a surprise thing and gave like a little bit of a talk after it, and it was really exciting. And it's like one of those things that stuck with me, and the legacy of this movie is kind of molded. I remember that experience, and I just remember sort of the campaign after that. But I was always wondering, is it as good as we all remember, or are we all just swept up in it? And on this rewatch, I was like, holy shit,
Yeah, literally.
This is
Like,
this is a perfect movie. This is like,
Mm.
straight up. Straight up. I went
and
into it
that
thinking it was, it can't be that good. Like, I've
yeah,
overrated it in my mind. And I was like, nah, this is that good. Like, it's so good.
because it doesn't happen much, right? To have a movie that everyone loves and you love, and then you watch again, and it's like still amazing. Usually, time sort of dulls that a little bit.
Mm.
And the second, like, and there is what like the twist in this movie. Once you know it, it definitely loses a little bit of the impact. But that is made up for in every other way of just how clever and sort of engaging and hypnotic it is to watch. Um,
Mm.
like I don't know, the biggest thing for me is like the script. The script in this movie is fucking mind blowing. Like there is just so much subtext. Every line, it reminded me of the Get Out script, where every single line
Yes.
has subtext to it, and it's like this is I know it's impeccable how well written it is, and it's just full of symbolism, and everything has these double meanings at play, and everything's being misinterpreted by other people or can be like has like another meaning that someone's trying to imply. It's like watching a game of I don't know, like a game of spies or something. You're trying to figure out who's quite telling what or who's playing who. It's just
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's,
like
I love the main family. Like, the movie starts off and like they're all in this home trying to get a Wi-Fi signal, and they're climbing up on these stairs up to the toilet that's just like in their living room, and it's
yeah,
like, oh, like it's a very much shows their living situation, and what it's like, and just one by one for all of them to get this foot in the door into this house, and like all these different stories and how they're introducing each other and how good they are at them roles. Like you'd think, usually like the cliche would be like, oh, this family, like how are they gonna convince these people that they're this good, like at tutoring or like
Mm.
art therapy, but
yeah.
they perform it so well that it's like it's so believable as both characters. Like I love it, and just I remember being tripped out by the twist, and like there's the famous shot of his head at the staircase that the kid sees and all this. And
The
I feel
ghost,
like because I
yeah.
hadn't seen it in like 5 years, I'd forgotten a lot of it. I'd forgotten how it
Yeah.
ended. I
Yep.
just knew there was like a bloodbath in the backyard, but I didn't know, like, I thought the kid died downstairs when he gets the rock thrown on his head. I was like, oh, that's right,
Mm.
they just kill him off there. Forgot all about the ending. Now I didn't know. Not watching it for a few years made it such a fun thing as it was happening to be like, oh my god, that's right, this happens now, and then this happens, and yeah,
Yep.
it was so much fun watching it.
Yeah, like you call it a twist, but this movie like takes a turn. Like, and like lots of movies do this. Like, it's not the only one to ever do it, but I feel like the first half is so compelling, and it's this grift story, and they're taking over this family, and then the turn happens, and it's just a totally different movie, and it's so tense, and both halves just work so well, like apart, and then you put them together. Oh, it's just beautiful, and like even the visual storytelling of this movie is really good too. Like I love that scene where they finally escape the house, and you just see them walking down, like how much lower they are. Like just I don't know. And the thing watching it this time that I took away from it was like, all of these people are horrible. Like there is not a redeeming character in this whole movie except for maybe the little kid, like and like the two kids, I suppose. Like they're kind of horrible for grifting this rich family. The rich family's they're not good people either. And then even, the people living in the sub basement are like taking advantage of people. Everybody is a parasite.
Yeah,
It's fascinating. Like, because usually you kind of cheering for the underdog, right? And you do at the start of this movie as well, I think, to some degree. But they do take it too far, like getting the driver fired and like
the maid,
like putting the beach dust on her and saying she's got
really
tuberculosis. Like, goodness sakes. Like, like it's I don't know, it's hard to like at the end of this movie say these are the good guys and they got there in the end, because again, like even the ending is kind of this weird gut punch of like, I don't know. Like his solution is to become part of the system and to become rich, and you see this vision of it and you think, oh, he actually did it, like he saved his dad, but no, like this is it's a plan, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You empathize with them, and like you can't not, because the opening scene you see like some guy pissing near them, and they're like, keep the windows open so we can fumigate our house, and they're just choking on it. But
that's
like,
so funny. He's like, no, it's a free fumigation.
And they're all like,
choking to death.
they're like, good idea, very smart. It's like, oh, this is awful. But then I was struck this rewatch similarly, like they're actually, because in the hands of a lesser filmmaker, this would be a story of the privileged, grotesque rich class being undermined by a by the noble underclass, and like
The
they will
cunning
take over.
underclass. Yeah.
Yeah, and they will take over and be like, "Oh, good, the poor have finally leveled the playing field." But what's so fascinating is, in the end, it's like the rich family, the Parks, are actually probably better people.
Yeah.
And like, there's this. Oh, there you go.
Like, yeah, they're better, but they're ignorant of
Yes.
stuff like that, and they're
Naive,
privileged.
yeah. Yep.
They're naive and privileged. Like, I love just the thing of her in the car, like celebrating the rain washing away like some of the pollution, and like his house is
Amazing.
flooded, and he's just sitting there like, and she's like, how good? How good is the rain? Like,
That's what
it's
I
so
mean.
good.
Like,
It's
I
it's
hope to
so
I hope
great.
to one day write a line that works that well. Like, it's amazing to
Yeah.
have that. But like, there's this recurring thing in this where the Kim father asks in the car, he's like, they're complaining about his wife. He's like, "Oh, but you love her after all." And Mr. Park sort of stops. He's like, "Yeah, I love her." And then it happens again at the park later where they're dressing up. And Kim's like, "But you love her after all." And he's like, "Yeah." And I was kind of confused at first, but then you realize what it means is like he keeps thinking that even though he's poor, at least he loves his wife, and these rich people don't love each other. But the Parks actually love each other more than they do, because there's that scene where they're like, he looks like Kim's about to punch his wife, and then he's like, "Haha, you kids thought I was being serious." But you as a viewer are like, I think there's like an undercurrent of truth to this. There is a frustration here in this marriage, and he's like momentarily thinking of it. But even though, like, at the end, the Parks, like, they have a more loving relationship, and like he's doing all this stuff that he sort of ridicules himself for. He's dressing up as an Indian for his kid's birthday.
He's feeling his wife up on the lounge. Like, they love each other.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like, and even though she's like a vapid idiot and he is kind of detached, like, they still actually are. They actually still have a pretty healthy
Not evil.
relationship.
They're
No,
not
and like,
evil.
No.
they come home and he's like, "Hey, what happened with the tutor? How's it all going?" Yada yada yada. They get intimate on the lounge. They want to go camping. Like, they're actually decent people, and it's like, but then that's also the problem, is that being good is afforded by their wealth. And when you're poor, you can't afford to be that good because you have to survive. And it's this brilliant study of exactly that, of like, they're both parasites. They both feed on each other. This thing exists in, like, yeah, symbiotic unison of good people can often be good because they're afforded the luxury or the privilege to be, and bad people are often made that way by circumstance. And this system just breaks everybody involved in that. No one, because then you've got the other people who are living in this underground basement,
Yeah.
and like, because they have to escape debts. It's like, that's fucking crazy.
It's funny how much of that's like a theme now in cinema a lot, especially Korean cinema. Like, that's basically the theme of Squid Game, as well, as like debt is just so crippling in Korea particularly, but like, I don't know, it's just become this universal theme that's flown throughout. It's interesting. And Mickey17, yeah.
Get off the planet to find
Yeah.
debt.
It does seem to be a big thing in Korean culture. Like, I'm assuming there's not as much like social welfare and stuff like that there. So I think there is like this sense of more people need to take loans to just survive and have a chance. Because this is like in all of, or in most of Bong's films, this is like a subplot somewhere.
But man, the tension in the camping night is just like, with them under the table, like, are they gonna make it out? Like, then the torch comes on and he's just like laying in the middle of the lounge room floor, just like face down.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so good. It's like, there's so much tension in that whole thing.
I mean, even like, it starts before that, where they're all enjoying themselves and the rain starts coming down, and as a viewer, you're like, it rains, people come home from camping, like, you know that's going to happen, and the doorbell rings, and it's not that, right? Like, it's the old maid, and she's injured, and then I love that scene where she walks into the pantry, and she leaves it for a minute, and she comes down, and you just see her like horizontal between the wall and the shelf trying to push it open, and it's just such a funny moment. But I don't know, I just love it so much. And then they repeat it again later when he's rescuing his dad, and so good.
Because when I saw this, when you first have that reveal of all that, you're like, oh, the Park families are a bunch of serial killers. They're like kidnapping people and murdering them or something. Because like that reveal, like, and her sort of floating there, it's like there's a moment where you're almost like, is she possessed? Like, what's going on? This is gonna go whack. And then it's revealed that they've like kept in the basement, and I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a horror movie. Okay, this is cool. But then it doesn't do that either. It's like, or it is a horror movie, but not in the conventional way. It's like a horrible in the way humans act. Yeah.
And this dude that's just gone crazy, and he's like literally turning the lights on, like just headbutting this like thing and like he gets an automatic light as he walks up the stairs, and he's like praising him like he's God. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, he's thankful to him for giving him a place to live because he can like hide in his basement. It's
yeah.
I don't know, there's like so much to think about. Like this is the kind of movie that after you watch it, you just sort of need to go and sit and talk with whoever you saw it with and be like, what are we doing in this life, you know? Because there is this is everything Bong's interested in, perfectly synthesized. Like it's all his ideas of class and inequality and greed and human nature being pretty bad. And yeah, just in this perfect like study of that. You know, you get that sometimes. Filmmakers will make a movie. It's like this is perfect. This is exactly what they want to say. They've fully realized it, and they've had the skills to do it. And this is exactly him here. Like, just there really isn't anything wrong with this movie. Which I don't know. I was expecting to be like, oh yeah, a couple of things haven't held up as much on a second time or after the dust has settled. But I was going to mention one more scene, and then I'll shut up. But that scene where they're talking about the ghost, with the kids seeing the ghost, and he's like, "Yeah, I saw a ghost in the house," and it shows the father's head appear.
Yeah.
Not only is that scene just absolutely terrifying, but then they mention like the mother, I think, mentions they say that a ghost in the house brings wealth, and I'm just like that. The subtext of that, right? Of like this guy haunting your house and provide like the wealth is built on his. Or people like him, their blood, like the ghosts of people, as in poor people, the shells who have to haunt the basements of rich people. Like, how do you come up with this? It's so good.
Yeah.
The mother pushing the maid down the stairs right before she walks in the kitchen, and she like gets to this other end and she just pushes her back down. It's like it's that moment where you take a gas because you know she's falling down the stairs, and it's like, okay, now it's taken even more of a turn. Now it's like murder or something.
Yes.
And then when he gets out, it's like as soon as that the main character's like gets caught walking out the door, like pull back and falls on the ground, it's like, oh no, this isn't good. And just that rock that's followed the movie along, it's oh man, what an ending.
Yeah, and the ending is so poignant. Like the father is stuck there by his own sort of doing, and like it's really tragic. And it, like I said before, it kind of plays on the idea because you expect the son to die, and then out of nowhere, like the daughter gets killed.
Yeah.
And it's like and you know, you're not really like no one should have, but you're not really sure. I don't know, but then he survives, and it's just like this mess, and like they're left to pick up the pieces. And yeah, I'd forgotten as well about how he makes the plan to get rich and to
buy the house. Yeah,
and it's like, but that's probably never going to happen.
No,
like based on what we've seen, right? Because you can't actually just become wealthy by doing this. It seems to be like
no, you just got to pull your boots up. Work hard.
By your bootstraps. I mean, there's a pretty good chance he has brain damage too at this point, which may actually help his chances of becoming a billionaire. I'm not sure. Yeah, no, you're right. It's just one of those movies you want to talk, like, relive the scenes, talk to people about it, because it's just, it's so fun. And just, it's all just dripping with subtext, which just love. It's fun to pull apart and watch. Even for so long, I'm like holding out hope that the boys' plan kind of comes true and he gets the girl. Like, they seem kind of sweet together, even though it's kind of creepy because she's a little younger than him. Like, I don't know. It's one of those movies where you feel bad for cheering for certain people, and I was really smoking the bong with this movie.
Mr. Pack didn't deserve to get stabbed at his son's birthday party, you know?
No.
Yeah, but
I just love how he they're lying on the lounge talking about how bad he smells while he's under the table listening to it. Like, how, like, overhearing somebody talking about you and them saying something just so cutting is just horrible. Like, just depressing as anyway.
Yeah, because it's also like they're not like, oh, he's really stinks. There's like he has like a smell that's like the subway.
Yes, he has that poor smell to him.
Yeah, and it's like it's that offhanded, like they're not actually being rude, but because they're sort of aloof to it, it's rude. They don't even realize that they're being cruel by behaving away. It got me like in that massacre scene after the crazy father's like killed. Park has to pick him up to get the keys, and he like has to close his nose because he stinks so much. It's like,
that's what gets him killed, because it gives him flashbacks of being called smelly, and he's just like, "That's it, I'm gonna kill you."
I forgot. Yeah, like in amongst all this chaos, he's still repulsed by the odor of
Yeah.
poor people. It's like shit. All right. In the interest of time, we should move on. Do you guys have anything else to mention, though?
Perfect movie.
Yeah. All right, Mickey17. In the future, on a space expedition, Mickey is what's known as an expendable, and he's a man who has to go on the dangerous journeys and die and be reborn. And as the corporation he works for journeys to colonize an ice planet.
Mm.
So that's not a spoiler. This is all in the trailer, the conceit. It's like he's on the poster as well. There's lots of Mickeys.
Yeah.
Unpack this for me, guys.
Griner touched on it earlier, though. Just first thing I'll say, because it was my main thing coming out of this movie, is similar to Tilda Swinton in Snowpiercer, letting actors step out of the comfort zone and have fun. Like Mark Ruffalo and Toni Collette are awesome in this movie. Like they are so much fun, and it's they're a lot of fun.
I mean, we're there now, but I didn't realize this movie had been shelved for like 2 or 3 years. Like the whole getting grazed on the face with a bullet and people being like, "Oh, that's Trump." That hadn't happened 2 or 3 years ago. Like I don't know. There's lots of fortuitous things there too, I guess. But man, I really loved this movie. I had a great time with this movie. Is it as good as Parasite? No, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but I still had a really, really good time. I really enjoyed it.
Yep.
It's an interesting follow-up from Parasite, right? And like it was kind of doomed to fail because following up like this monumentous Oscar win and a Metacritic of 97, 3 most important film podcasters giving it a perfect film rating, which is what we've just done. Like, he was kind of always doomed.
Hard to top that. It's hard to top that.
Yes. It's like, where does it go from this? But it's just an interesting choice. Like he goes from this scathing sort of satirical thriller to a pretty wacky comedy.
Sci-fi.
Sci-fi. That's kind of all this movie is. Like this movie doesn't really go into anything thriller, any sort of horror like a lot of his other movies. It's just like it is just a comedy romp.
I think I was expecting it to be a little darker potentially. Like it's very funny in my opinion. Like they don't really, there's when you're cloning someone, there's room for lots of things. You could do body horror, you could do a whole heap of stuff, and they don't really go into any of these places. Instead, we get, the printer like gets a little bit jammed every time it spits him out, and you got a guy running around in a pigeon costume. Like it's silly, and it's a lot more comedy forward than any of his other movies, I think. But I had such a good time. I really enjoyed this.
And like a lot of time is spent with like, what would you do? Would you have a threesome if there was 2 of you, right? If you printed this, like what would the sex look like there? Which is really funny, but it's like, out of all the questions that I have about cloning and the dilemmas there, I'm like, I don't know if that's really that important. But Luke, what did you think?
So I'm a big, R-Pat fan, Team Edward for life. So I was looking forward to this. And like Griner said, I had a lot of fun watching this movie. Like I'd probably seen the original trailer that had come out, so I wasn't aware of like, the aliens in this and stuff like that, or like, the, what would you call them? Like the animal life.
The creepers,
yeah. I wasn't aware of them at all. Like I think they're shot once, like in that ice thing to show, this is how he gets killed in one of the like the lives. There's a ice monster that kills him, and I sort of pictured it as like the Star Wars monster. Like he got trapped in ice, some snow monster kills him, and for them to be such a major plot point, I wasn't expecting. But I don't know. I really enjoyed it, and I think that lends like the whole start of the movie is very class warfare, like why he needs to get off Earth, why he needs to leave. Just the way Mark Ruffalo talks down to him, it's very representative of certain billionaires in our world. Like it's quite a bit social commentary, even though it wasn't trying to be. But it's like I don't know.
It was, and like it's very directly referencing Trump. Like his followers have red hats on.
Yeah,
like there's a religious element there that's very hypocritical.
He
it's
lost an election, and then he's like doing this.
He literally does the dance, like the
this
dancing, like one scene. It's like, okay. If there's ever a question there, it's like no, that answers it.
Yeah.
I mean, anyone who opens a macaron business is doomed to fail. Like, he kind of brought this on himself.
He really thought it was going to take off.
Conan, I get the sense you weren't that hot on this movie.
Like, it's still fresh in... It hasn't been long since I've seen it, so I'm still processing it. But Yeah, I don't know if I love it as much as you guys seem to. I don't know, like this isn't a flex, but I'm trying to just be like, look, I've got this contextualized where I've seen all of his movies, so I'm kind of like comparing his entire filmography,
You're more
right? And
cultured than us when it
like
comes to bong.
yes, I would
When
never
it comes
say
to the bong,
when it comes to the bong
you
hit, I'm a frequenter of it. Yes,
yeah.
I would never say it to your faces, but it's inferred.
Mm.
But so I'm just looking at it as that, right? And I'm like, I think overall this might be his weakest movie, and I'm just like,
Mm.
but again, I don't fully know yet. I guess my biggest problem with it is like some of the like I said, this is a comedy first and foremost. There's really not much else to it. Like, it's kind of like it's got bits of like satire and farce and brief moments of thriller, but not really. It's really just a comedy. And I feel like he's not really saying anything overly interesting here. Like in all of his other movies, but in the two we're talking about, Snowpiercer and Parasite, he's very clearly got stuff he wants to say.
Hmm.
And like, is what he's saying in Snowpiercer overly like new? No, but it's clear. It feels like a scream. It feels like someone trying to scream sense into somebody,
Yeah.
showing you the absurdity of this system we have. This movie is like, look at this aloof rich person who's kind of being sort of propped up by his like his conniving wife, and everyone's a jerk on this spaceship, and like printing's funny, and then like the whole second half is an ecological parable,
Yes.
like there's the scene where Naomi Aki is screaming at Mark Ruffalo, and she's like, "We're the aliens." It's like, God, you can't get any more on the nose with that. And
Yeah.
again, Bong's not always overly subtle, but I'm like, I don't know. You've already sort of said this with
It
Octo. You've said this.
feels forced.
It just kind of doesn't feel like it's anything overly new here. It's like, yeah, like I don't know. This he's kind of saying, "Hey guys, don't kill the planet," or sometimes the whoever's in charge can be the invader, and we're not always being invaded by foreigners. It's like I don't know. It doesn't feel quite as insightful or as clever as anything else he's done.
Yeah, I don't disagree. And for me, I think actually anything like the last act, all the alien stuff, creeper stuff, whatever you want to call it, is the least interesting thing that happens in this movie, in my opinion. Like,
Yes.
I wasn't the biggest fan of where it heads with that.
No.
But I really quite enjoyed him contemplating being a multiple. There's that moment where he's like, previously I was okay with dying because I would be reprinted. It had my memories. It was me continuing on. But now that you exist,
It'll be you.
is that me next time that I die, or is it you? Like, that's a fun concept to think about. Does it have any huge, reflection on my life? Am I ever going to die and come back? Well, that's probably another podcast, but I'm not going to be cloned, right? I'm not going to have that moral consideration. But I don't know. I think it's an interesting thing to explore, and I really enjoyed that. I really like the world that's set up here. I actually enjoyed this so much I started reading the book.
How far are you in that?
About a third of the way through, so I'm not super far into it.
Is it similar or is it changed?
It's definitely similar. So far, there's no like Trump. There's definitely a religious sect that doesn't like multiples in the same way that there is here. And the other thing is, like, Mickey is very kind of dumb in this movie, right? Like, he's kind of an idiot. He's not dumb. He's not dumb in the book. He's just useless. Like, he's a historian in a world where everybody can look up everything that ever happened in history. Is basically why he's useless. But he's not stupid.
Right.
So it's an interesting change there, but I'm going to keep reading it because I do enjoy this concept in this world. And yeah, I would have almost preferred like a movie where he's sneaking around and dealing with being a multiple, and one of them's falling in love with Naomi Aki and the other one's with the other girl who's extremely attractive too. I mean, it's Robert Pattinson; he could pull the whole colony if he wanted to, I suppose.
No, I think you're right. Like that is the most interesting part of the movie, and I don't want to do that thing where you're like, oh, this movie should tell this version of the story.
Yep.
But I couldn't escape that. The whole time I was like, that's what's interesting about this concept, with this whole concept, is cloning is like, what's the psychology like of dying? Like, The Prestige handled this really well, where Hugh Jackman's like, I don't know who I wake up as.
He can never see the applause. Like, he doesn't get to see it, but he creates it for the next copy of himself.
And that in and of itself is like a really good look at this. In this, it's like he has that one moment where he's like, one conversation where he's like, I don't know what I'll be. And I was like, yeah, give me that. Give me a movie of that, of like, this guy has a multiple. It's like, what does that mean? There's so much philosophical stuff there. but that is not at all the movie Bong wants to make. He wants to make like a just kind of like a farcical comedy about what happens if this happens.
Hmm.
And as a result, I don't know. I was like, the Trump stuff or not the villain stuff kind of becomes. It almost feels a bit like a crutch. It's like we need a big billionaire villain who's just kind of a bit aloof and a bit useless. I'm like, but do you?
Did you find them fun though? Mark Ruffalo and Tony Collette?
I like they're chewing up scenery, and like Bong Joon-Ho is really good at this. Like in Okja especially, there's like four characters who are just absurd, and the actors are just having the times of their lives. It's like he's really good at just giving an actor like something to do.
Tony Collette with the sauces, like everything's different.
They're really unsettling. Like when she just blends the tail off and she's like, "Eat this sauce." I'm like,
Yeah.
she didn't cook it.
Try it.
Yeah, no, like they're all good, and like Robert, this is the movie I would recommend people see it still just for Robert Pattinson alone, right? Just seeing him act his little heart out and be different characters. They just model like narrate the stuff is fun, but
that's what I like about that thing. I enjoy all that stuff the most as well, and I do feel like I probably wanted more of that whole dealing with being a multiple and how does he do that on the ship and them trying not to get caught, as they're running around together and stuff like that. That's the most exciting stuff, and also just seeing the personality differences. Like one of them's trying to kill his friend Stephen Yeun, and the other one's trying to save him, and it's like that's the fun stuff that I want to see. How they deal with that sort of stuff. So
yeah, Stephen Yeun's a real scumbag in this movie. Isn't he? He's fun though.
He's fun.
He's always great when he gets his little mustache out. He's good.
Yeah.
I think I really like the dinner scene, like up until that point, and I think that whole stretch of Tony Collette and Mark Ruffalo is really good. It is, I guess, it does become a bit much by the end, and then I was kind of waiting for like a twist or something, and they kind of toy with one. They have a trial twist, I guess, where Tony Collette's printing out Mark Ruffalo's, and you think that's. You think that's going to go somewhere, but it doesn't, and it's just a dream, and it's meaningless, and it's kind of
like the first time we had it.
Time.
He's never mentioned the dream before, but then he's like, "I always had this dream." He's like, since I was a kid, I've always had dreams. It's like, really? You haven't told me that yet. Like, this movie kind of feels like there's been some reshoots, and I think there was.
I have heard I've heard a lot of people say there's like a lot of studio interference, and that Bong Joon-Ho shouldn't really make movies for Hollywood. And maybe that's right.
Like, I'm inclined to agree. It just feels like there's some parts that are sort of tacked on. And I guess the ending as well kind of bothered me. Like, this is the most positive ending he's got of any movie, where he's like you say, he's like, oh, there was some brief division between the supporters and the rest and the other ones. But that's fine. Now we came out on the top, I guess, and we'll blow up the printer and we'll have a nice colony. It's like, I don't know. Bong, where's your balls? Make this really sad. Like,
they're even making jokes with the creepers. They're like, like, oh, you were just bluffing and all this sort of stuff. Like, it's a very positive, happy ending sort of thing.
Which is strange because I'm like, this guy who hates capitalism and the systems we have, to be like, don't worry, we can overcome it if we just all help the animals. I'm like, I don't know. And I wonder if I'm bringing in my own baggage with like where we are now. If this was released 2 years ago, maybe I'd feel differently. But seeing sort of how futile a lot of people are in the face of someone doing some questionable behavior in the government, and like to see someone just like how things get dismantled and nothing happens, no one stops it. When this movie is like, if we all just sort of some gumption and some people standing up for what's right, everyone will eventually do the right thing. It's like, I don't think that's true.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, like, you get that a lot in this movie. Like the military kind of turns on them at the end. Like everybody comes on side of the good guys, and it all works out for the good, right? Like,
yeah. And that being said, there was some funny moments when he's doing like late night with Kenneth, and he's like doing the talk show, and he's just like singing gospel songs. And like that, I laughed really loud with that. That was really funny. And just some like just the slapstick stuff, like him coming out of the printer and like flopping over.
People forgetting to put the table underneath him, and just as Grant mentioned, the way he's like jolting as he's coming out of the printer, like it's like struggling to print him out. Like I don't know, I like the humor stuff where it comes to like oh wait, no, what's happening right now is we're actually testing this new thing to see if it will kill him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the doctor that comes in, he's like, oh, actually, so that steak was laced with this. Let's see what it does to him. He's just there like pulsing on the floor, and they're like, how interesting. This might be a perfect opportunity to give him this experimental drug that might fix him. So let's see what that does to him.
Yeah.
He's just an absolute guinea pig. And that's a lot of the humor works with that.
Yeah, I think that did work, but I don't know.
But how do you top a movie that's perfect?
That's like, that is true, and so I don't hold that against him. I'm not like, oh, where's Parasite 2, Electric Boogaloo? You know, I'm like,
did he become rich? I need to know.
I need closure on this anecdote. But I guess it's like just watching all these other movies, because he's always done this. Bong's always been like one sort of, like, his first movie is kind of a black comedy. His second one is a really serious neo-noir. Then he makes like a monster movie that's more comedy than anything else. Then he makes another serious thriller. Like, he does this. He sort of goes back and forth between his two modes. But this is just him leaning into the most comedy. And I think it works when he's blending genres better, when he's like comedy with other stuff. Whereas this is just, this feels just too like a lighthearted comedy.
Comedy works really well in Parasite. Like the dark comedy works.
Yeah, and I guess just putting it here with like a sci-fi romp, I don't know. It's just not my thing, I guess. I guess it was still good. I still enjoyed this movie. I'm definitely not like, oh, rubbish, but I think it's, we're all naturally going to judge it harsher because of where it stands and because of the pedigree.
Yes.
And so I'm just a bit like, this isn't to the same level as his other movies.
I mean, I think my expectations are pretty high too. Like, as you say, R-Pats, Bong Joon-Ho, sci-fi. Like, I'm there for it. And I had such a good time that I'm reading the book now. Like, I think it's an interesting story and world. I'm curious to see how the book goes towards the end, if it's the same or not. So,
yeah, I would be very interested to know. Is there much else to say? I don't know. I don't have a whole lot else to mention about this. I'm still processing it, but
no, I think I've said my fill. I enjoy the calorie stuff, which the book is very big on. Like, it's like, you've got this ration of calories today, and did you know that having sex burns this many calories and it's not allowed?
We're going to ban it. And
actually, that seems really funny. But then he's like, once we get there, we'll have to run the best pro-sex campaign ever. Everyone's just like eating it up. That was funny. I was expecting a lot more twists. I was expecting a lot more of like, the whole time I was waiting for Naomi Aki to be like, I've been tasked with like comforting you so you don't go crazy or something, rather than just being like, oh yeah, she just really loves this. She just really loves him for some reason. And then there's the scenes where someone keeps smelling somebody. I think Kai's smelling her. And it turns out to just be that drug, that oxy she's taking. But I was like, she's going to smell that she's a multiple. And there's actually like all the chicanery going on there. But I don't know. That's my fault. That's on me. I shouldn't be trying to read in like what should happen.
Yeah, I was also kind of expecting there to be someone else abusing the system of cloning, right? It seems ripe for abuse, but it's all, it's just used for the task it's intended for here. Like,
he's the only one that signed up out of all them people. He didn't read.
I guess so. He
signed up.
Apparently, yeah. All right. Well. That's all of them then. Let's rank them. So for me, it's a pretty easy Mickey17 at the bottom, Snowpiercer in the middle, Parasite at the top.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I was higher on Mickey17 than you guys, and I was pretty close to putting it above. I was pretty close to putting it above Snowpiercer, but I don't think it quite gets there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
I really like Mickey17. I'm going to watch it again when it comes out on demand. But yeah, I'll probably have the same ranking as you, Conan.
Yep.
Yeah, right on.
Mickey17 is a closer third than what you would have it, but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I would implore you all to watch Memories of Murder. I think that's actually his best movie.
I do need to try and track it down.
I'll sell you this DVD copy.
I'll just go down to the local video store and rent it.
Wait. Yeah. It's not 2004 anymore, bro. All right, thanks for joining us all for this episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. Next week, we're going to do the Punisher trilogy. So that is the 80s Dolph Lundgren original. We can watch Bernthal series as well if you want. So it's pretty good. But we're doing the Dolph Lundgren 1989. I think it's 1989 movie.
Yep.
And the Thomas Jane one in the early 2000s, and then Punisher Warzone as well. Let's get some B grade action into us, eh? All right, Liz, thank you again for joining us. This podcast was brought to you by my books, The Taste of Iron and God Grotesque. They're not very funny, but
Check them out.
they're still cool.
Yeah.
If you like this,
commentary.
yeah, for that. If you like this podcast, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell everybody about it. It helps us a lot. Really appreciate it. Thank you again, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.